It is late on a Tuesday night in September of 2023, and a 35-year-old electrician in Elko, Nevada, is sitting at his kitchen table with a laptop and a cup of coffee that has gone cold, doing something he has done, in one form or another, for the better part of 5 years. He is searching for himself. He types his name, the name he has questioned, quietly, since his early 20s, into a government database he found 2 weeks ago. He types Caleb and the birth year he has always been told is his, 1988, and West Virginia, the state he has a handful of memories of that his father never fully explained away. He hits search. A listing comes back. A missing child case, opened October 1993. The name on it is Caleb Stone. The child in the photograph is 5 years old, with dark hair and a gap between his front teeth, wearing a green sweatshirt, looking at the camera with the slightly wary expression that small children give cameras when they would rather be doing something else. The child in the photograph looks exactly like his daughter. He closes the laptop. He sits in the kitchen for a long time. Then he opens it again. His name was not Caleb Brooks. It had never been Caleb Brooks. And the woman listed on that case file as the reporting party, Dana Stone, Marlinton, West Virginia, was not dead. She had never been dead. She had been waiting for 30 years in the same house he was taken from, and she had put her own Dina into a federal database in 2015 in case he ever came looking. He came looking. This is Caleb's story. But it is also Dana's. And to understand what 33 years of waiting looks like from the inside, you have to go back to the beginning. Marlinton, West Virginia, sits in the Greenbrier River Valley in Pocahontas County, tucked into the Allegheny Mountains in the eastern part of the state. At an elevation where the autumn arrives 2 weeks earlier than it does in the lowlands and stays twice as long. The county has more black bears than traffic lights. The river runs cold and clear through the center of town. And in October, the hardwoods on the surrounding ridges go red and orange and gold in a way that people who have seen it tend to describe in terms that sound like exaggeration until you are standing inside it. Population in 1993 was around 1,200 people. There was a diner, a hardware store, a pharmacy that doubled as the social hub of the county on Saturday mornings, and a single stoplight that everyone treated as a suggestion. The Stone family had been in Pocahontas County for 2 generations. Gary Stone had grown up there and gone to work in the timber operations that were one of the last reliable employers in the county after the coal had peaked and begun its long retreat. He and Dana had married in 1985, when both of them were 23, and they had been, in the way of certain couples, very good together for a few years and then not very good at all. And by 1991, the marriage had officially ended in a way that courts describe with legal language, and families describe in ways that do not appear in any record. Dana got custody. Gary got Thursday evenings and every other weekend. Dana worked the front desk at the county health department. She had grown up in Marlinton and had not seriously considered leaving it, in the way that people who are deeply rooted in a specific landscape sometimes cannot imagine what the roots would attach to somewhere else. She kept a garden on the south side of the house. She made Caleb's Halloween costumes by hand because the ones in the store never looked right to her. She was 31 years old in October of 1993, and she had, by that point, built a life after the marriage that was smaller than the one she had planned, and better in some ways she had not. Caleb was 5. He had dark hair that resisted every effort to comb it flat, his father's stubbornness, and his mother's laugh, which arrived without warning and took over his whole face. He had loved dinosaurs since the summer, when Gary had taken him to see a movie involving them that had made Caleb briefly unable to sleep without a light on. but had not diminished his enthusiasm for the subject even slightly. He kept a green plastic stegosaurus on the windowsill of his bedroom at Dana's house and referred to it, for reasons that he alone understood, as Gerald. He had a habit of narrating things to himself in the bathtub, a quiet running commentary on whatever he was doing that Dana could hear through the door and that she would later describe as one of the sounds she missed most in the years after he was gone. He called her Mama D. She did not know why he had settled on this. She had never asked. She had assumed there would be time. The leaves on the ridges above Marlinton were at peak color the week of October 8, 1993. The air smelled of wood smoke and the particular cold sweetness of a mountain valley in early fall. It was, by every external measure, a beautiful week to be in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. It was the last week Caleb Stone would spend there for 33 years. October 8, 1993, was a Friday. Gary Stone arrived at the agreed pickup location, the parking lot of the Exxon station on Seneca Trail, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The handoff was unremarkable. Caleb climbed into Gary's truck. Gary said he would have him back by 6. Dana drove home. 6 o'clock came. Gary's truck does not come down the road. She calls the number for Gary's apartment. It rings 7 times. No one picks up. She calls again at 6:20. Then at 6:40. Then she calls Gary's mother, Edna, in Lewisburg, who says she has not spoken to Gary since Sunday and doesn't know where he'd be. Dana hears something in Edna's voice that she will spend years trying to name. She calls the West Virginia State Police at 7:15. The troopers who arrive at her door at 7:45 explain the process, the options, the forms, the timeline. They use careful words. Donna listens to all of it and understands, before they have finished, that careful words are what you use when the situation has already moved past the point where anything uncomplicated can be said. By morning, the state police know that Gary Stone withdrew $400 from his checking account on October 7th, the day before pickup. His apartment was cleaned out. His truck was captured on a traffic camera on Interstate 64 heading west, outside of Lewisburg, at 9:47 on Friday night. He had Caleb with him. He had packed. He had planned. He had not made a mistake that Dana had not made first, in the way that people who feel wronged sometimes convince themselves that a drastic action is actually a correction. By Sunday evening, Caleb Stone was listed as a missing child on every law enforcement database in the country. Gary Stone was nowhere. Trooper Patricia Weiss of the West Virginia State Police led the initial investigation with the efficiency and frustration of someone who understood from the outset that parental abduction cases either break in the first 2 weeks or they do not break for a very long time. The parameters were clear, and the parameters were the problem. Gary Stone's name, physical description, and vehicle were in every system. His social security number was flagged. His credit had been pulled. His bank account was closed the day after the withdrawal. His mother, interviewed twice in the first week, was genuinely distressed and genuinely unknowing, and both things were true. Gary Stone knew how to disappear because he had thought about it long enough to do it without errors. In January of 1994, a tip placed a man matching Gary's description in Flagstaff, Arizona. Investigators followed it for 6 weeks before it collapsed. In 1997, a lead from a school enrollment in Douglas County, Colorado, matching the description of a child named Caleb of approximately the right age, was tracked down and ruled out within 3 days. The case remained open. Open cases and active cases are different things, and by the early 2000s, the Stone file had become the former. In 2018, the West Virginia State Police Cold Case Unit conducted a statewide review of outstanding missing children files opened before 2000. Detective Marcy Holbrook was assigned the Stone case in November of that year. She was 42 years old, methodical in the way that cold case work requires and that some personalities find impossible, and she called Dana Stone in December of 2018 to introduce herself and to tell her that someone was actively looking again. Dana said, "I know my son is alive. I have always known that." Detective Holbrook did not argue with this. She had been doing this work long enough to know that the certainty of parents is not always correct and is also not something that should be argued with, because the times it is correct make up for everything else. She began working the file. Gary Stone had, somewhere west of the Mississippi, under a name that was not his own, built a life. She intended to find it. Dana Stone has never left Marlinton. In 2001, her sister in Charleston offered to help her find a house there. A fresh start. "Dana, you've been in that house for 8 years. You can still look for Caleb from Charleston." Dana thanked her and declined. She said the house was the last place Caleb had lived. She said if he ever came home, she wanted him to know where to find her. She has worked at the Pocahontas County Clerk's office since 2004. She has a garden on the south side of the house that she has extended 4 times since 1993. She maintained a Facebook page dedicated to finding Caleb from 2012 until 2021, posting on his birthday every April 8th, posting on the anniversary of his disappearance every October 8th, answering every message that came in regardless of how little it contained. In June of 2015, she drove to the state police barracks in Lewisburg and gave a cheek swab for submission to NAMUS, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. She did this because a woman from a missing children's advocacy group had told her about it, and because Dana Stone does not leave any door unopened, however small, however unlikely to lead anywhere. If Caleb's story found you for the first time today, subscribe. There are more families like Dana's, and they deserve to be followed. Back to Caleb. Meanwhile, in Elko, Nevada, a man who had grown up as Caleb Brooks was becoming someone he recognized, and also, in certain quiet moments that he could not fully account for, did not. He had been told his mother had died when he was very young. He had been told his father had had to start over. He had been given a version of his own childhood that was internally consistent and impossible to verify, and that had satisfied him completely until it didn't. The first time it didn't was when he was 19 and applied for a passport, and his father was strangely reluctant about the paperwork. The second time was when he tried to get a copy of his own birth certificate, and something in the process didn't align the way he expected. He had filed both things away. He had a daughter in 2019. They named her Lily. In the summer of 2023, Lily turned 4, the age Caleb was when Gary took him, and something about watching her, about the specific smallness of a 4-year-old who has no idea how available she is to the world, unlocked something in Caleb that he had been keeping carefully filed away for 15 years. That fall, he started searching. He types the query on a Tuesday night and the listing comes back, and he looks at the photograph for a long time. The child in the photograph has his daughter's face. He does not call anyone. He does not call his father, who is living 60 miles away in a town called Spring Creek, and who has, as far as Caleb can tell, been quietly waiting for exactly this moment for 30 years. He sits with it for 2 weeks. He talks to his wife. And then, in October of 2023, 30 years to the month after Gary drove west on I-64 with a 5-year-old boy in the passenger seat, Caleb Stone submits his own DNA to NAMUS. He uses the name Caleb Brooks on the submission form. The comparison runs against the reference database. Dana Stone submitted her sample in June of 2015, 8 years and 4 months before Caleb submitted his. The algorithm does what it is designed to do. The probability figure that comes back in January of 2024 is not ambiguous. Detective Holbrook is at her desk in the Lewisburg office when the Namus alert arrives. She reads the match probability. She checks it twice. Then she picks up her phone and dials a number she has dialed many times over the past 6 years. Dana answers on the first ring. Detective Holbrook tells her that a Dina profile was just submitted to Namus by a man in Nevada who used the name Caleb Brooks. Born April 8, 1988, she tells her the match probability. She tells her the match is against Dana's own sample. Dana makes a sound that Detective Holbrook will later describe, in the only interview she gave on the subject, as something she does not have the right language for. Then, Dana says, very quietly, "I knew. I have always known." Then she says, "When can I call him?" Gary Stone was located in Spring Creek, Nevada in February of 2024, living under the name Gary Brooks, working occasional handyman jobs in semi-retirement, driving a truck registered to an identity he had assembled carefully enough to hold for 30 years. Nevada State Police and federal agents arrested him on a Friday morning at his residence. He was 62 years old. His first statement, recorded in the arrest report, was, "I did what I thought was right for my son." He was extradited to West Virginia in March of 2024. He was charged with custodial interference and related federal charges. Through his attorney, he declined to elaborate on the statement he made at arrest. He entered a guilty plea in September of 2024 and was sentenced to a term that accounted for his age, the decades that had passed, and the fact that Caleb, given the opportunity to submit a statement to the court, chose not to. Caleb has not visited his father in custody. He has said, in the limited public comments he has made, that he does not know yet what he wants to say to him or whether he wants to say anything. He said that his father taught him to fish and to wire an electrical panel and to change a tire in the dark, and that none of those things are no longer true. He said that his father also lied to him every day of his life about who he was and where he came from, and that none of those things are no longer true either. What Gary told him, the specific shape of the fiction, was that Dana had abandoned them both, that she had chosen to leave and had not looked back. Caleb grew up believing this. He grew up with a low, unexamined sadness about a mother who had not wanted to stay, and he grew up not asking too many questions about it, because the answers, whatever they were, seemed like they would be painful in a way he was not ready for. They were painful. They were also not the answers he had been prepared for. The community of Marlinton, West Virginia, received the news in the way that small mountain communities receive things that have been a long time coming, with something that is not quite relief and not quite grief, and is in fact both, running alongside each other the way two tributaries run before they join. Dana's neighbors brought food. The woman who had worked the front desk of the Pocahontas County Clerk's office across from Dana for 11 years cried when she heard and did not apologize for it. A brief notice ran in the Pocahontas Times. Within a week, everyone who needed to know had been told. There is a photograph of Caleb Stone from the spring of 1993, taken in Dana's backyard, 6 months before he disappeared. He is standing in front of the garden on the south side of the house, holding the green plastic stegosaurus he called Gerald, squinting into the afternoon light with an expression that is somewhere between impatience and affection. The way a 5-year-old looks when a parent has said hold still for a second, one time too many. He is wearing a red t-shirt. His hair is going in approximately 4 directions. Dana has had this photograph in a frame in the front room of the house on Seneca Trail since 1993. It has not moved. The first time Caleb walked through the front door of that house, in April of 2024, on his 36th birthday, he saw the photograph before he saw anything else. He stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he looked at the woman who had put it there and kept it there for 30 years, and neither of them said anything for a long time. Because there is a category of moment that language was not designed to carry, and that people who find themselves inside one tend to understand the same way. Dana is 58 years old. She is still in the house on Seneca Trail. She still has the garden on the south side. It is larger now than it was in 1993. She says she never had a reason to stop expanding it. Caleb has said, in the time since the case closed, that the hardest thing is not the anger. He expected the anger. The hardest thing is that the love is also still there, that his father taught him things that were real, that the man who lied to him every day of his life was also, in the specific daily texture of that life, a good father, and that he has to hold those two things in the same hand and has not yet found a way to do it without one of them cutting into the other. He brought his wife and his daughter Lily to Marlinton in April of 2024. Lily is 4 years old. Dana had been told about Lily before the visit. She had seen a photograph. But she was not prepared for the specific experience of holding a 4-year-old girl who is the age Caleb was when Gary drove west on I-64. And feeling the weight of that, and understanding something about those 33 years that she had not been able to fully understand until that moment. She held Lily for a long time. Cases like Caleb's ask questions that do not resolve neatly even when the case does. What do we do with the love we feel for someone who has wronged us in ways that cannot be undone? What is it called when the man who stole your life also gave you one? How do we account for the parents who never leave, who submit their own DNA to databases in 2015 and maintain Facebook pages for years and stay in the same house so their child knows where to find them? And what does it mean that it was Caleb himself, finally, who came looking? And what do we owe to the children who grow up inside a lie that someone who loved them built, who have to dismantle the story of their own lives and find out what is true and what is left standing after? Leave those questions in the comments. Tell us what part of Caleb's story stayed with you. And if you want to follow more cases like his, subscribe. There are more families in more houses, waiting. Justice came for Caleb Stone after 33 years. Not from a lab, not from a tip, not from a database running in the background of someone else's life. He came looking for himself. Subscribe so you don't miss the next case. More solved cold cases are in the description. Caleb Stone was 5 years old when his father drove him away from a mountain town in West Virginia. He is 38 years old now, and he knows where home is,